Hello, everybody. I'm Richard Thomas. I'm chairman of the Guernsey Data Protection Authority, and I'm really delighted today that I'm joined for this conversation on April the 28th by Peter Hustinx, who can perhaps be described as the supremo of European data protection. Peter, welcome. Would you like to say a couple of words about your recent roles?
Well, it's a long story, but I'll cut it short, Richard. I spent 12 more years being the Dutch Privacy Commissioner. After that, the same amount of time, 11 years in Brussels, as the European Data Protection Supervisor. And most recently, as a non-executive director for ICO, I'm just following development. So it's a wide experience of diversity.
Well, Peter, I've known you many years, and I think you know almost everything there is to know about data protection. Project Bijou is our new experiment in Guernsey, and this is, as you know, a social initiative aiming at shifting culture, changing behavior, and reducing harm in relation to how data is handled, personal data is handled. Yeah. It's very much about the telling of stories. Can I invite you to tell a story which, from your experience, illustrates the importance of data protection?
Well, the story which I want to share with you relates to my very first period in Brussels. You know, the European Commission played a key role in developing a directive and developing data protection, but there was only one department and all the other departments were not aware. In fact, they turned out to have all kinds of misunderstandings. So I, at one point, organized a meeting with all directors general. You know, they have big egos, a big table, 30 DGs, all staring at me. And I explained my mission, I explained what I was going to do and why it was important. And then the first questions came. Silly questions like, oh, I was told I can no longer keep my agenda on my computer because data protection will forbid this. All kinds of stupid things. And I said, well, you know, this is nonsense. What you need to do is just organize a decent implementation by taking measures, setting up a program. At the end of the year, you sign off because you are responsible and I'm going to hold you responsible. They said this is about planning and control. Yes, and you have all those other subjects you are responsible for as well. So make sure this is part of your regular activities. And that's how it started. There were some incidents to help me, but they were just discovering what it meant for them. And so you need to reach out to the highest level to make them aware. Otherwise, you can go on for ages. And I think just rights are nice, they are essential. But if no one is able to deliver the rights, to organize the protection, it will never work.
I think that's a brilliant story, Peter. I mean, even at the highest levels of the European Commission, they needed their eyes to be opened, and your eyes clearly opened.
Exactly.
This, I suppose, links really to another aspect of Bijou, which is it's all about the culture and the behaviors in real life of organizations. And I'm wondering whether you could give us an example of where an organization really managed to change its approach and really take data protection seriously and start getting it right.
Well, maybe the follow-up of the same story. Fast forward, we were checking up regularly on how those departments and many other European institutions and bodies, there are about 40 or 50 all around Europe, were doing regular reporting. And we used the traffic light approach, you know, red, yellow, and green. We said, we're going to publish this. And the list of colors will be published. At first, they didn't believe me. But I can tell you, by the time those colors were published, the day before, we got telephones that they had updates. to make sure they were moving from the red into the yellow or from the yellow into the green. And it had an enormous impact, making it visible, how they were doing. And that this was shared with outsiders was crucial for making the whole system. And I was happy that it took some time, but after a while, the scores went up and up and up, and then we could focus on where the issues were and could praise them for their great accomplishments. Gradually, there was much more green than in the beginning, I can tell you that.
Well, that again is a very interesting story. I mean, it's all about transparency, and you'll know my sort of commitment to maximum transparency. I think there's a very famous quotation from the United States, which is that sunshine is the best disinfectant. And the more sunshine is let into organizations, the more they are seen to be accountable for what they're doing, then the better chance of getting it right. And I suppose that leads to our next question, really, which is, we're both lawyers, Peter. Deep down, I'm a lawyer. You've been a lawyer, a very distinguished lawyer. But do you sometimes worry that data protection gets a little bit over legalistic and does not focus enough on the human side? And Bijou, again, is all about human values and trying to get people understanding why it's so important. And we've shared some of the detail of Bijou with you. What's your reaction to the project and our attempt to make it more human?
I think it's very interesting, and that's not just polite. The name is intriguing, it's charming, and you'll wonder what the hell this is about, but stories are key. And so pages of black letters won't do it, not even in colors, So you need to be able also in the news to produce stories people can relate to. And and reaching out to culture and behavior and what it is about me, recognizing, my own role in the news. That is important. So an annual report is not complete without catching stories. And this was exactly the question I got in the press conference. Could you give me a story about this? Because I need to write about this. Oh, I agree.
And so I think I'm hearing from you that you are intrigued by our project. You welcome the fact that we're trying to do this, and we spent at least a year spreading as many stories around a small community as best we can, but maybe larger jurisdictions can learn from our experience after the first year or so. I've got one final question, Peter, which is, I've talked about people, ordinary human beings. How can ordinary individuals improve the way in which their data is being handled?
Basically, by first being aware in your own life, but not only as a victim, not only as someone whose data are being processed somewhere far away. It's also very close by. The other day, I was approached by someone who said, in my association, the secretary doesn't want to publish the people who are moving to another address, or have stopped their membership in the association because for privacy that's not allowed. I say that's nonsense. So you need to ask the right questions and need to decide in your assembly about the rules of your membership lists. But it is stupid to think in terms of data protection as stopping signs. In sum, be aware in your own neighborhood, sports association, culture association, a music club, how are they dealing with those data? And then you'll discover that other people recognize it, and then it spreads. So awareness translated into real life. That's actually what I think is important.
Peter, that's you've covered in a very short time some of the key words, I think, which we were really hoping you'd bring out. You brought out the importance of leadership, the importance of planning, control, transparency, leading by example, asking the right questions. And I think you made a very important point at the end, which is actually data protection starts locally. It doesn't start with the European Commission. It starts locally. And if we can get people to engage at local level and understand its importance, then everybody benefits.
It's a big thing, but you need to think local, act small, and then then you will understand what it means in reality.
Well, thank you, Peter Hustinx, the voice of real wisdom. Thank you very much indeed for joining us today. Thanks, huge amount.